Today's web design trend is brutalism. We're going to be exploring brutalist web design, its origins, and how we can utilize it, in this case, in a Squarespace website builder platform. And I'm going to kick off with a disclaimer. Brutalism isn't my preferred art style. I find it's too raw, too bold, for a lot of the clients that we work with, where you're looking for a simpler, cleaner, minimalist, let's say more corporate design. However, there's always a time and a place for every art style, and as designers, it's often good to be creative and to look at themes that we wouldn't normally go after to ensure that our web design doesn't become stale. By taking ourselves out of our comfort zone, hopefully we can become better all-round designers, and that's the aim today. I'm going to be starting off with a brief that we'll be creating using Voila, an AI tool, for a fictional events company. But I still haven't told you what brutalism is. Let's have a whistle-stop history tour. Referred to as brutalist web design or brutalism as a design theme, this word comes from the French dictionary, translates roughly as raw concrete. So that's already giving you an idea of the direction we're going. It was first utilized in architecture in the UK during the 1950s or post-Second World War, where even the cheapest, simplest commodities were sold at a premium. As timber would have been so expensive, producing concrete was cheap, easy and effective. Even the art styles and design styles had very little extra decoration. Gone were the mansions and instead brought in the blocks of flats, as in these examples here. This transfers across to web design. We are looking at bold structures, typography, but with a minimalist theme. So on one hand, we've got that minimalism. We are not pumping in features into our design that aren't needed. But on the flip side, we want to make a bold statement due to this simplicity. If that sounds like a paradox, we'll find out. Let's crack on. So we're kicking off as one does, where we're just going to do a quick Google image search for brutalist architecture, just to give us a flavor of the direction that we're going. And as we can see here are some prime examples, some more simplistic, some more complicated. This was pioneered here in the UK, and we actually have an example very close to home here in Swansea. And this is Civic Centre, and there's a debate ongoing at the moment as to whether this should receive listed status. I think, spoiler alert, the answer was no, it wasn't different or innovative enough at its time. This is a prime example of a city that was razed to the ground in the Second World War due to Nazi bombing. This type of building was cheap, efficient, and most importantly, quick to erect, so it allowed the city to get back on its feet that much quicker. Another country that adopted this art style was the USSR, again, post-Second World War, during the Cold War era. Here we've got examples of Aberdeen being used as the scenes for the 2023 movie Tetris to recreate that Moscow feel. And here we've got an example of the zoology building at Aberdeen, where much of the story took place. I think the film is a scream. I really enjoyed it. I loved the over-the-top feel to it. It had that 80s vibe. And as a designer watching this film, I couldn't help but want to go away and start designing, both using the brutalism theme, but also having that combination of brutalism and retro. I will almost certainly be creating a video based on 80s retro theme, so stay tuned for that. And I always find it's very interesting and amusing to look at the other keywords associated with this search term. And we can see concrete, Soviet, modern, interior, futuristic. And then we've gone across a bit. We can see Russian and dystopian. Okay, back to web design. Let's create ourselves a brief. I'm going to go with Tempo Tribe Productions. There we go. So we've got our name. Just setting the prompt now to create a web design brief. I'm not over enamored with some of the content here, but this gives us a good example to start working with. Okay, now I'm going to head over to Squarespace and we're going to create a new site. Okay, what I'm going to do to start with, I'm just going to add in some simple content blocks from templates. We're going to keep it really simple. I'm going to go into the site styles now. And here we can select our font selections. I think I'm going to go with something that's really chunky, bold. We don't have to do too much with it to give it that over-the-top, concrete, hard edge feel. I think we're going to go with this one, and we're going to go really large and bold. And I think for the paragraph styling, we're going to go with giant size fonts throughout. That will work nicely. I've actually got some examples of brutalism here on this article from the Elementor blog. And here we've got an example of the very first styles of brutalism in web design. And we're going to be bringing in this blue, which is the very first HTML blue. And someone my age will certainly remember these. And so we're going to go with a simple, clean font for the main content, but that bold, chunky heading font to contrast it. Okay, I don't want to lean in too much on other examples. We're going to go with Helvetica as our paragraph font. Okay, so now we've got that in place. Just jump back out of this. Close that down. We can start looking at putting in our main content. I think what we're going to do is go with a split heading. Just going to align that to the center and duplicate. And we're going to get this text to fit the container. We're going to go with that effect, but I think we're going to go bigger and bolder once again. And this is a relatively new feature in Squarespace where we can get the content to fit the edge of the containers so we can have that large oversized font. We're going to use an overlap effect here, which is another design trend in 2023. And we're going to grab a little bit of content. Okay, that's a little cheesy, but we'll go with it. We're going to go with this vinyl effect here. So we're going to have an issue straight away with this text and this vinyl effect cancelling each other out. So here we might be able to go with a background color. So we've got that white block cutting in over it. So we've got that overlap effect. We've got a specific style that we're after. And now I'm going to style that button. And we're going to adding a section below. We're not going to design the whole site. I just wanted to give you a feel for this section here in terms of how we can build multiple sections together. We'll go with an expanded introduction here. So we're going to go with bold for this text as well. And here we could go with a strong alternative. Now I'm taking it potentially away from brutalism by going with the high contrast opposite effect. You see with a lot of the other sites, you have that same theme going through, but screw it. It's my design. I'm going to do what I want. The one thing we're going to do to wrap up, and so we've got this really nice, simple brutalist theme, is we're going to take the color scheme back to that raw blue that many of us remember from the early days of web design. I'm going to put a big oversized button in here. Hadn't thought that through. That won't work. We could put it to a paragraph 1 though, which is generally by default in Squarespace that little bit larger. What we're going to do now is go back into the style settings and we'll go to fonts first, and now we'll go to the buttons and we'll have the button style in that same style as well. And we're going to go with that large font size. Finally, we're going to go to colors and we're going to change our color palette. We're going to have it going from light on the left to dark on the right. We're going to use that black. We're going to use dark gray, and this color in the middle. As I said, we're going to go with, I'm going to do it by eye. That's close enough. We're going to go with that original blue color from the early days of web design, taking it back to its raw ingredients. And as we can see now, we've got some art styles that we can pick up with. Here we can have that introduction, and then we're going to add one more section. And let's have a look. What could we add in? Yeah, we're going to add in a ticker across here. And this time we're going to add in the blue colors to make that really bold, really stand out. And now the section below, we're going to add in one more section just to show how this ties across. So we've got the sign up plans here. So we can see here straight away, we've got the red blocks because they're not hooked up to any products. So we see here that the colors aren't quite right because we've got an opacity on them. So I think actually if we go with black styling, that could work. Okay, we got there. I would create a secondary button here for the sign up to be a little smaller, but without losing its feel and its edge. And here, we can bring that forward. Make this bold. Go with white. So hopefully that's given you an example of a brutalist theme web design. I probably even toned it back a little more than some would, simply because, as I said at the start, this isn't my cup of tea. Essentially, it's not my preferred art style. But hopefully that's just shown how we can do something a bit different in Squarespace and in web design in general by embracing different art styles and taking ourselves out of our comfort zone. So there we have it, a sneak peek at using Brutalism in our web design process. I've used Squarespace in this example. This is the platform that we base most of our designs around. And there are loads of templates available at the Pixelhaze Academy store. Go to pixelhaze.academy if you want to jump the gun and see this template in its final version. And that will be launched at some point during October 2023. I hope you found this informative, enjoyable, and I want to ask you a question now. Do you want to see more content like this available on our Pixelhaze channel? If you do, please leave a comment. I also want you to share your own feelings in terms of using Brutalism in your designs. Are you bold enough to give it a go, or are you still on the edge? One final note to take away, don't force it. Don't feel that you need to bring in these design styles because they're on trend at the moment. We often need to build websites that last 5, 6, or 7 years without the need for an upgrade. So if something's on trend now, it may not be within 2 or 3 years, and then you may have to have a difficult conversation with your client. Always think about horses for courses and when to apply this. Hope you've enjoyed. I'll catch you next time. Cheers.